Old Man is arguably one of the most famous films ever to be shot in Vienna. It's full of murder, mystery and suspense. What's unfolding inside the Montesino in Vienna may not be murder, but there's plenty of mystery and no shortage of suspense. The big game is well and truly underway, and for 48 hours, nothing can stop its relentless journey. For some, that will mean walking out of here with a large amount of cash. For others, they'll be lucky to leave with their pride intact. But that's what makes the big game so fascinating. No one really knows how the mystery will unfold around this table. The opening few hours have gone some way to solving the mystery of what's going to happen, but there's still a long way to go.
Phil Laak has a fearsome reputation when it comes to the big game, and with the 6th edition, he carried on just where he left off, making the most of his position.
I have position on some of the players that I know like to be a little more active, and they had 20K stacks. And then there's some guys behind me that like to raise to isolate, and I don't like to have the big stack with those type of guys behind me either.
Laak's lucrative laid-back style paid off early on and set Laak on the path to greater riches.
Laak and Trickett playing a big pot right here. Phil Laak off to a great start.
The river couldn't save Trickett, and that summed up the Englishman's first couple of hours in the big game. WSOP bracelet winner Elky was slow to join the action, but opportunities came, and with them, the money.
Wow, a dream come true for Elky.
Do you realize how big a raise Ilios just made?
Unbelievable.
250 up to 5,600.
And he's ran into the 2 aces.
The Jungleman arrived in Vienna with a fearsome reputation, but once again, it was that man Laak who did the damage.
And he's flopped the flush. Phil Laak, incredible, has flopped a flush here.
Alec Torelli eased his way into this game, but announced his arrival with a steady buildup of chips, followed by an explosive hand against Ignat Liviu. He's gone all in. He was trying to get Torelli off a chop. No big game is complete without Tony G. The larger-than-life poker star has been a constant feature in previous shows.
I just want to take everything they have and everything they have at home, and then I'm happy. That's the only plan. Everything.
Tony G waiting in the wings and waiting for his chance to play, but at the moment, the man to beat is Phil Laak, still riding high on the profit and loss ledger with over 26K in profit and still maintaining the highest V-chip rating, which should steer him clear of the up-and-coming eviction process. It does feel like we're just settling in still to a long game. I feel like, you know, everybody's still kind of wearing their opening uniforms. They haven't unbuckled their belt yet, taken off their sunglasses, ordered coffee. It'll all happen.
I'm going to put a suggestion in for the next big game, Jesse. The suggestion is try it in a 6-handed poker game. Then you'll really see some action.
Okay. What do you think?
Well, you're right, Mike. Obviously, 6-handed does get the money flying. But one thing you don't have in a 6-handed game, you don't get many 5- and 6-way pots, which I think we're going to see as the wheels start to come off.
Is everyone?
Why don't you just show your hand every hand?
No, 30 minutes delay is good.
Why don't we just tell everyone what we have? Yeah, why don't we just tell everyone? It's only half an hour later. And it's like, you can't trust anybody here. Why?
Now, Phil Laak's opened this to 300, and Katchalov re-raised from the button to 800, which has knocked out both Trickett and Ilias in the blinds with fairly good hands.
I think a half an hour away.
And it's an interesting play by Katchalov to isolate here, Mike, off what's essentially a short stack.
Well, Laak has flopped top set here. Katchalov has flopped second pair. A pretty good flop normally for Katchalov, but he checks. Look at this, he just checks. Now a 3 comes off. Now Phil Laak is going to lead out in bed, but Katchalov may not go anywhere. He's got second pair here. We've seen Katchalov 3-bet with all these middling cards several times here at this table. And had big cards come up, and Laak checked, and he bet he was going to win the pot, but as it is, he is drawing completely dead. No card he can catch to win this pot. Just a matter of how much more Phil Laak is going to put in his stack.
It's a funny play he's made, in my mind, before the flop. Re-raise and to isolate without being very deep with this kind of hand. When you're in position, Mike, I don't really understand it. Why wouldn't he just want to call and try and take a multi-way pot off? But obviously.
Well, I agree with you. When I have this kind of hand, I want multi-way callers. You know you have to hit something to win the pot most likely. So why don't you want more money in the pot? And if you raise it and the guy comes back over the top of you, now you burn up more money and don't even get to see a flop. So I understand what you're saying, Jesse, but
I mean, I'm sure there are spots for guys to re-raise it, especially in position and stuff, but he doesn't have many chips. That's what I'm thinking. I mean,
look, the flop could have come ace, jack, deuce just as easy.
Yeah.
And then Laak is going to check, Katchalov's going to bet and win the pot. Then you're going to praise him and say, wow, what a great play. 3-betting before the flop. So,
absolutely.
You know, sometimes you look like a genius, sometimes you don't.
He's got a very tough decision right now, 2,100, and you can just see on Eugene's face, what we've seen several times,
So guys,
he's been put in a lot of tough spots tonight.
A good lay down by him right there.
You know what I'm saying?
Just saving his money.
That's probably the mark of a really good player. When things aren't going well, you still manage to save a little bit of money, and he'll turn things around, or at least at some point he'll get a little rush of cards. You can always count on that.
That where none of us are supposed to even have our phones at the table. Mine's in my backpack.
I haven't looked at the blog, but I've looked at my phone. But I'm saying if I can look at raise 300, so can anyone else?
Jungleman has picked up 2 aces.
Okay, so guys, we're all in unison.
He raises 300, and everybody's distracted by the phone conversation.
Don't look on TV.
Speaking of which, my phone's charged.
Unbelievable.
Not looking at TV, like a little you know, whatever.
I'm saying I've been using my phone.
Well, Elky going to play the 10-8 of spade here on the button.
Like, if I'm using my phone, I guess anybody else can.
Sam's got the king jack of clubs, also going to make the call.
These hands are conspired for action.
Okay, yeah.
And as we've seen, Jungleman has been very hot so far as hitting cards and hitting flops. If that changes now, though, he could lose a bunch in a hurry.
Well, it's come 9-8-5.
Everyone's agreed.
No help for Trickett. You can see Elky has flopped second pair.
Mike, there are so many players, especially in these big no-limit cash games. It's so different than tournaments. You spend all your time waiting for aces, and then when you get them, your heart really starts racing because it's so much easier to lose a big stack with aces than any other hand, isn't it?
Well, it is because you can't get away from the hand. That's what makes them so difficult to play. And this is not the kind of flop you want to see in a multi-way hand with 2 aces. And that complexes it more, and look at that, the 2 aces have been outdrawn here. Elky has made 2 pair on the turn. Jungleman has obviously aces with the nut flush draw here. So in that aspect, it's good for him, but I promise you that 10 scares him. He checked, in fact.
Yeah, it's a funny little card, that 10 of diamonds, Mike, isn't it? I mean, even a lot of the hands that didn't beat you on the flop now do. I mean, that 10 of diamonds completed the flush, straight draws, and certainly Elky was well in the range of having a better hand than aces on the flop, wasn't he?
Jungleman afraid of everything right here. Flushes, straights, 3 of a kind, and 2 pair. All those are very good possibilities with the way the action went pre-flop and a guy to call your raise. Middling cards are what you're afraid of when you got 2 aces. And I promise you, Jungleman's afraid, but with the nut flush draw, I don't see him going anywhere. And now, to me, that is a tell that he's looking back to see if he had the diamond. He knew he had the 2 aces, but now that he's got the diamond, he's going to make the call. This, a little bit of inexperience in live play in my mind by the Jungleman. If you're playing online, that doesn't come into play, but in the real world, he knows he's got aces. The peek back to me makes it look like he's got the ace of diamonds in his hand.
And I don't think he's going to lose any money on the river if he doesn't. I mean, at this stage, even though you do beat a bunch of hands if you have the aces, there's so many more you don't
Well, the 4 diamonds
beat.
comes off. He's got the nuts now. He made the ace high flush. Tough luck for Elky here, but I'm not sure Elky can lose a lot of money. In my view, Jungleman has to bet here. His opponent's going to be happy to check it down, even if he's got a smaller diamond, especially after the peak. And he is going to bet. And if Elky was paying attention to the peak, he can get away from this hand.
5,000.
Yeah, Elky took about 1.5 seconds to make that decision, Mike. As you said, he actually almost open mucked his hand before when the card came down, didn't
Look,
he?
when you talk about tells in poker, usually they're not nearly that obvious, especially with great players, one like Jungleman. But to me, that was as obvious as anything you'll ever see at a poker table there. Seemed very obvious he was peeking back to see if he had a diamond in his hand, and then he bet on the river, so he made the flush. Elky knew it and quickly jettisoned his hand.
He's in profit. Then with Jungleman Cates, he's been very active, involved in a lot of pots. I did ask Jungleman the longest session he's ever played. He said it was in Las Vegas last year. I think it was over 24 hours. I said, how did you feel? He said, horrible. At the end of it, I hated it. I'm never doing it again. I was miserable.
I've said that so many times. You ache for 2 days after a long session, and as you get older, it gets tougher to recuperate.
Raise 500.
I'll tell you, it looks like Jungleman's held the most cards here at this table, too.
Everything you have.
Here comes Tony G. I heard him.
Waiting, kid.
I hear some energy.
Gonna evict 2 people.
Well, Tony G, if you don't know him, folks, you'll enjoy watching him. You might not like him, but you'll enjoy him.
Tony, hello, can I have a word?
All these guys, nits that come, they all cause all the problems in the world.
Tony, you're heckling the players already. You're not even on the table yet.
Well, look at them all. They're all waiting for aces. I hate it. I
Well,
want
you're
players
gonna
to have some heart, to play some bad hands.
You're going to be on there soon enough. Are you going to shake them all up for us and show us some real poker?
Obviously. Well, these guys are sitting, they're not even drinking. What is it?
Now,
What's wrong with all these professionals?
Now, you're a very,
They're a
very...
disgrace.
We're winding him up and we're going to push him in. Now, Tony, you're a really familiar face on the big Game 6. It wouldn't feel complete until you were on the table. You look like you're ready to go. Do you have a plan of action?
I just want to take everything they have and everything they have at home, and then I'm happy. That's the only plan. Everything. It all belongs to me.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm scared and I'm not even playing, so good luck.
Thank you.
I'll talk to you again later. We'll see how chirpy you are in about 40 hours.
Okay, see you then.
No big game is complete without Tony G. The larger-than-life poker star has been a constant feature in previous shows.
The main thing is to bring a lot of cash. When you come to my game, bring a lot, big bag.
I've never been this nervous. What are you doing to me?
I am the greatest. To get all the money in like this, who can do this in the whole world? There's no one. Only Tony G can do this.
I'm gonna take everything.
I can't wait.
Everything.
Ask them if you can buy it for more than 20, because it's going to be really sad
You're
looking.
buying for more. Everyone's straddling or what?
There's a
If
lot
you're not
of...
straddling, you're going to be evicted, and you're never going to play again. Never.
Already trying to pump it up.
Get in here and run shop.
Where's the straddle?
There you one that's not for a lot.
Where's the rear straddle? Come on.
Where's the restraddle? Do it now.
I just...
Do it one time. 200.
No,
One time.
because I don't like doing anything anyone tells me to do. That's why I've chosen to let
Do
the
it for
game.
yourself. Do it for yourself.
Nope.
Two things have just happened, Mike. One, if you're not excited about the potential energy that Tony G is going to bring to the game, you're crazy. And the second thing that's happened is everyone at this table has just decided, I hope and I pray it's not me who gets evicted.
It's so true, because everybody does want to play with Tony G. Not that he's easy to beat, but that he's an action-oriented player, and obviously he's going to make it more fun at the table because the needling will never stop.
As a matter of fact, Tony G's record in the big game is ridiculous. He was the big winner last season. The season before that, he was the second or third biggest winner. I think he's only had one losing season out of all the big games. But Mike, it's not just the way he plays; it's the way everybody else plays when he's in the game. That's the mark of an action player.
Well, it's true. They're losing everybody else up. You have to play more pots so they run over you, the action players.
Funny little pot here. Laak's opened it up under the gun, and Ignat has 3-bet it. What it did was it got Katchalov off a pocket pair. And, you know, it's kind of strange, first of all, for Laak to...
It's going to be the snap raise here by Phil Laak. He's got the flush draw. Makes Ignat laugh here, as you can see, but he's only laughing externally.
Mike, I mean, do you realize how big that check raise was?
Yeah.
Ignat had 20,000 back. He only bet 1,200.
Big hands, big bet.
I kind of think that Phil's gotten a little bit lucky there.
Well, he had the flush draw. He's going to go with the hand. He's just going to gamble. If the guy calls him, he's just going to try to make the flush to win the pot. It's that simple.
It's bad poker. Don't learn from me.
Wow. He's put 20,000 in. He's put though.
They can't call.
If you make a small raise there and the guy calls you, and then the deuce of spades comes off and he leads out and bets, you're not getting the right price to make the call anymore.
So it's better. You're better off to.
If you get it in with a flush draw on the flop, the guy may fold as he did there, or you get lucky and hit the flush.
And as I understand it, Mike, the first vote is a player vote. What that means is all the players will be given a secret ballot. They'll write a name or seat number on a sheet of paper, and we're going to get to see them one by one. The seat or player that receives the most votes from his peers here, out.
Well, you just wonder if it's Trickett with his chips now. He's still losing, but still got more chips than most everybody at the table, which makes him very dangerous.
I mean, politics, a lot of guys might not want to see Trickett on the table, right?
I want to know if it's a secret ballot or a public vote here, Jesse.
It is a secret ballot. It's
Okay.
the first eviction, Mike, is a player eviction.
So they write it down on a ballot list? Is that what happens?
Yeah, and we get to see it. They put it on top of their whole card cameras.
Oh,
and we'll
I
go around.
see.
Well, everyone will find out who voted for who. Don't worry.
Oh, boy.
No, yeah.
Well, that's a problem. You know, you hate to make enemies at the table, but, you know, it's not personal, folks. This is business. You vote off who thinks is in your best interest to vote off. Plain and simple.
We've got a big hand here. Meanwhile, now.
Wow, look at this.
It was opened by Alec Torelli. Let's just get this. It was opened by Alec Torelli to 300. Phil Laak made it 1,000 from the small blind, and Jungleman's made it 3,800, Mike, with the 6-9 suited in the big blind.
Wow.
So obviously, there has to be something going on here where Jungleman believes Laak has been re-raising light, which he has been, to be fair, has been, but he's got the timing all wrong, hasn't he?
Well, we'll see if he's got it all wrong. The other guys aren't out of the pot yet. I don't think he's going to call. He's going to raise, I think, if he plays the pot, and indeed he does.
Wow.
Wow. They could drive Phil Laak out of this pot the way this hand has been played.
He's put in 9,000. He has put in 9,000.
I'll get 8s, I think. Yeah.
Phil Laak instantly folded his queens.
Wow, what a play by Torelli. That was incredible. Give him credit for that. Phil Laak playing very unlucky there. If Jungleman doesn't raise that pot, you're not going to see Torelli making that kind of move. And a good chance that Phil Laak is going to win that pot. Certainly he's going to play against one of those guys, but you can't play against both of them that re-raised, and especially a guy who's painted a tight image like Torelli has here at this table.
Jungleman, who's down 2,300, is trying to get a bet with Sam Trickett over whether or not Alec had aces or kings. That last big hand where we know he was bluffing.
I just wanted to get called once.
Well, Trickett knows it too. He saw the spot. He saw the eight.
Then I don't have time.
He'll definitely have upset though. Thinking about. Do you know when he's put 20,000 in pot? Do any of you honestly think that?
I always have the nuts.
50 and 100.
I would never do that without a big hand.
Minimum not with a straight draw somehow.
Not just
a naked flush draw. You're good at scared away. He's scared. Got to be a gut shot in there somehow.
You know, it's not completely true, obviously. We have seen Phil Laak make some moves
Feel a little better about it.
without the hand.
Never be too soon. Just in case.
Saw him put 7,000 in the pot against Ignat with the 4-6.
He's made the most moves without a
I
hand
think so.
of anybody at the table. Well, Katchalov has finally caught a lot here. He's got the 2 aces, trying to figure out how can he extract money from Torelli, which is tough to do.
1,100.
Well, it makes it 1,100 to go.
Whoa, Sam, it's 1,100.
Now Sam has put in 300 here. Now he's got to make the call for 1100, and he does so with 2 queens. He would have re-raised had he not known that Katchalov raised, but this could spell bad news for Trickett. The only good news is that Katchalov's on the short stack at the table, and he can only lose another 5,600 more. If that's a positive, I don't know.
Well, I mean, I honestly think Trickett may have just called anyway, hoping to catch Torelli. He knew that Katchalov is very short. You know, you kind of committed with the queens against that stack anyway, in a sense.
It's all going in here. Don't worry about it, folks.
Yeah.
Bet 1,200.
Well, obviously, Sam Trickett thinks he's got the best hand. He's going to try to get the rest of the chips. He's made the call here.
Top said he doesn't want them to know. I don't care, because I'm afraid of the 4.
He's just going to play basket catch. Get Eugene.
And now an ace comes off, so it's 3 aces. But that's a card that Trickett is not going to like. He was just trying to trap him, thinking he had the best hand. Now he's afraid of 2 aces. Forget about 3.
Yeah, wait for the board pair. Bet 1,800.
If there was any chance for Trickett to get away, it's now. I personally, Mike, think he was sort of mentally committed for Eugene's stack pre-flop and didn't really care how the board ran out. But as he said, I've made it very complicated. He's actually thinking about laying it down, isn't he?
And I think he has a good reason to lay it down here. With no chips at all, what's Katchalov going to be betting with unless he's got at least 2 aces here?
I think what makes it even more interesting is that in Sam's mind, he's thinking, well, even if he had something like, you know, 1 pair, ace-king, ace-queen, he still would go all in because he'd be a little bit worried about the hand. It has to be like 3 aces, you know, or 3 tens or something.
Well,
All in.
well, Sam called the 1,800 on the turn.
Just been all in pre-flop every time. Was it 2,600?
And now it's 2,600 more. Well, I mean, he could have had a chance to get away, and he didn't do it.
Good news for me, I suppose. Yeah.
I mean, he could be nothing but a bluff on the end there.
No matter what you do, you're gonna like.
Yeah,
you're gonna bust. I'm too short for
I
you
was
to get
thinking about folding on the turn, basically.
Well, I think Sam could have folded that in the turn. I know it's hard to lay down 2 queens. You only pick up big hands just very rarely, and when you get them, you just hate to give them up. But had he thought about that, would the guy really be bluffing his money off with no hand there for the little amount of money he had in front of him? I don't think so.
And if there's ever a turn you can get away.
Everything was so complicated.
I cannot wait to play with you, Tony G.
So there's going to be 2 players eliminated. I'm sorry, but it's going to be unbelievable for the game. But there's 2 people that have to go.
Fair enough.
Same family.
It's going to be, I guarantee you, my uncle's playing.
Okay.
Me and my uncle are coming in, and we're going to play every pot. The first pot we play, we're going to be all in. The first pot, I promise you, both of us.
Whatever you want.
He's already doing that. He's already doing it.
Well, he's threatening everybody.
Come back. Right. You got to go.
Fair enough.
Is Tony G the director around here? I mean, he's making all the rules. He's telling everybody what's going on.
Disgrace. Pretty tight. I played like 4 hands.
All this going on, of course, in the middle of the Casino Montesino in Vienna. The WPT is going on in the background. Tony G is, well, he's just lost his mind.
Well, somebody's got to take charge, Jesse. Who's in charge here? Let's make a decision here.
I think it's
what goes on?
fairly
They said they're taking a vote, 2 players, or is that just Tony? But when do they vote? When does all this take place?
There are scheduled times every 4 hours for the eliminations, and I think we're about 10 minutes away right now, Mike.
I don't think there's any question that the players themselves will vote off Elky or Torelli. That's my guess. Not that they don't like these guys, but that they're the least action, tough players to beat. So I see one of those guys going.
No one should know,
What they're talking about now is if they're going to tell each other how they voted, and they want to keep it a secret ballot. That's these guys are all friends. It's
Well, I
not
agree.
personal. They know it's not personal, but it's a game.
Well,
it is a game, and that's the way it is.
Well, Phil Laak picking up 2 kings, and him and Trickett involved in another pot. And Trickett better get very tricky to win this hand.
I think Trickett. I thought he'd pass. He's actually peeled off the 3-bet. Wow.
He has. And he flopped an open end straight. Folks, this could be a huge pot right here. Trickett's the kind of guy that's liable to gamble with the open-end straight. If he gets raised here,
he led into him on the flop, and Phil Laak has just called this.
and he made it straight on the turn. Phil Laak is going to lose this pot. Doesn't matter what card comes up on the river, just a matter of how much he goes for. Against the stack of Trickett, you see how cautious Phil Laak is playing here.
At this stage, Trickett will know, that Phil Laak can often have exactly what he has here, so you might want to go big on the river.
Well, you're going to go big now, because in case the guy had a flush draw, he didn't make it. He's going to check any pair with that kind of board, possible straight out there. Trickett is definitely going to make a bet here.
7,000 in the pot. You might want to go for the whole pot, really. They might really want to go for this.
Well, believe it or not, that card at the river might save Phil Laak some money. He might be afraid that somehow Trickett made 2 pair or straight with that card.
7,400.
It's also very consistent. First of all, the Trickett does bet 3 barrels once he starts, and if he did have some sort of queen jack of clubs,
Well,
he's
he's
got
been
called.
called by Phil Laak, and Trickett gets action. When he makes hands like this, he gets paid off. That's the beauty of being an aggressive, loose, gambling style player. When you make hands, you get paid off. We've seen it several times here. Trickett in a spin most of the time, but the 2 big pots he's played, he's won them both because he's an action player.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's how you play the 8-10 offsuit.
Coming up, the next chapter of the big game unfolds, and a twist is added with the first eviction. Who will stay and who will go? And perhaps more importantly, who from the waiting group of players will step up to take their place in the Party Poker Big Game 6.
Welcome back to Vienna and the big game. It's a unique setting for a unique game. What sets the big game apart is its ability to vote players off.
This is the moment all of our players have been dreading. It's time for the first elimination of the Big Game 6. Now, the most aggressive player at the table will be exempt from all the votes. And I can tell you that that player is Phil Laak. So Phil, you are safe and you cannot be voted for. All of the players at the table are now going to write the name of the person they would like to vote off on the back of these cards.
This is where it gets fun. And they have decided among themselves, these players, that they're going to keep it secret. Obviously, we will know, but the players will not share their votes with each other. Sort of professional courtesy. Jungleman. Elky has voted on Jungleman to be out. That is straight. That is straight. I don't want to play with Jungleman anymore. He's too tough.
The name of the person is fine.
Trickett's voted for the Party Poker guys now. That can only be, he's not interested in playing with a guy who's on a short stack. Wow, and Ilias votes for Jungleman as well. That's another for Ilias. That's 2 and 2 between Ilias and Jungleman. Ignat wants Sam Trickett off the table. Torelli wants Ilias off the table. That's 3 for Ilias. Now 2 also for Trickett.
Okay, the votes have been counted and verified, and I can tell you that the first player voted off and eliminated from the Big Game 6 is... It's Iliodoros, and it's seat 3.
Yeah. Okay, good game.
Sorry, Iliodoros. And not only has been voted off, but he's losing in this game. The only reason I can think that these players would vote for Ilias is when you buy in for the minimum. Guys with big stacks on the table, they don't care how you play. They want to send a message to the game. The big news here is that dramatic loss for Phil Laak. While still in profit by a healthy margin, his stack took a real hammering from Sam Trickett. Alec Torelli still going well. Trickett's figures look considerably better after that win over Laak, and maybe the eviction of Iliodoros comes at the right moment for him in terms of limiting those losses. It's all change at the big game. The eviction of Iliodoros heralded a mass clear out of players. Elky left 9K to the good. Ignat Liviu calls time on the big game, leaving with over 21K down. And Eugene Katchalov heads for the door, having lost over 8K. All of that opens the door for 4 new players to enter. Roberto Romanello, a winner on the EPT, one of the most successful Welsh players on the circuit, and crucially, a big game veteran and back for more.
I play it every year, really enjoy it. It's different for me because I'm always known to play tournaments. But I do enjoy the odd cash game, and no matter where it be.
Marc Gork has enjoyed some success on the EPT, but his love of the cash games has drawn him to the big game, which he's kept a close eye on so far.
The game was really tight in the beginning. Not really big action, only the good hands were all in. Some crazy setups, flush against top pair, top kicker, which is a standard all in a cash game like this. But yeah, let's see what the next seed brings.
Damir G has already enjoyed some special Tony G promotion, labeled as his uncle and suddenly thrust into the big game.
He invited me, you must play, come on, we play. And Omaha is my game. Holdem is not my game, but I will try, I will give my best.
And then the man himself, Tony G, enters the fray. His big game record speaks for itself. Can he now turn the 6th edition into another profitable venture? I'm joined right now by Scott Baumstein, high-stakes player, WPT final tableist, high roller winner. Scott, you've got the buzz here, seen the buzz in this casino. What are your impressions here in this game?
Well, this is going to be really exciting. The game's about to pick up. We got Tony G in the game. There's going to be a lot of action. A couple of guys left the game over an issue of their own, and I think a few guys are starting to get stuck, and that's when the game picks up. Tony G is here. There's definitely going to be a lot of action now.
Not only is Tony G here, he's raging. He is yelling, he is screaming, he is drinking, he is smiling.
Tony's been barking orders for the past 3 hours at the stage. He's been ready to go. He's been waiting for somebody to be kicked out of the table, as it were, and he's ready to go. He's ready to play. I think he's going to come out firing.
In a way, I'm happy to give it the 20,000. You want it? Just take it.
What did you start with? 20?
20.
Where are the other chips? Oh, they're all black. Okay.
This is really a different point because Tony G has just stuck in 5,000.
Now the game has started.
No one's
I think he's done this
With all the
blind.
greens, you made a palace
He wants
out
to
of it.
make a statement. And this is a statement to make. He's got the 8-3 offsuit.
This is exciting. Now Tony's really going to pick up this game right now, and people in this spot are obviously just kind of waiting for a decent hand. Depending on your position at the table, they're probably waiting for a hand like a decent ace, maybe like an ace-10 or better, or like a pair of sevens would be ideal. But I mean, from the big blind, you can call with like a hand like
If
pocket
you
fours, pocket fives.
know Tony G has moved 5,000 in blind,
Sure.
Tell me what your range should be.
Don't raise. Just you can call. Raising would be unfair. Call and see the flop. Do it properly.
The problem is if you put out 5,000 and you have 3 people to act behind you, you're committing your stack at this point.
Well, Torelli is in the big blind, and he's obviously thinking about this.
You should call. I mean, it depends. If you lose this hand, maybe you quit playing or something like that. But mathematically, you should be calling off here. You should be shipping King 7 here.
He did,
and he is. And this puts Tony in a really tough spot because Tony knows now that Torelli is shipping weak and that he very likely has 2 live cards here.
They come here and they look for cheap shots. That's all they want. Right, Phil?
I think so.
Cheap shots is all they want.
Well, now Tony G's looked at his cards, and I kind of feel like, Scott, that he would be willing to have just called the 15 extra K with nearly anything. But with the 8-3, he's just
sure,
have to
it happens to be just really unlucky when you're putting in blind and it's 8-3 off. The total bottom of his range, if that 8-3 was, say, an 8-9, I mean, he'd definitely be going with it. But he decides to fold.
I never know if I'm getting slow rolled with king, so I didn't say anything. I was like, oh God, he's going to call me with 2 aces.
If you're not voted off, and you're never going to play this game again for doing that, you're a disgrace.
piece of You can't see the flop and see play the hand properly? You're a disgrace.
How much does it hurt to have just dusted off?
You're never going to play these games, ever.
Dusted off 5,000 euros.
This game is going to get exciting.
He's mad.
It's possible.
He is hot.
What do you think I am? You want to make an idiot out of me? You think you're a genius? You're coming from America, you want to make a joke out of me? That's what you want?
I just wanted the 5,000, to be honest.
Yeah, that's all you want. You just want 5,000. Easy 5,000.
Yeah, I had to risk 20 to get it. It wasn't easy, you know? It's not easy with the 7 in your hand to just put in the 20 ball.
That's the start. Just the beginning. Waiter!
Bring us a few bottles here.
You just get the feeling, Scott, that he is going to try and make people uncomfortable by over-betting, by putting pressure on, by trying to get people gambling. What do you think?
Absolutely. I'd be willing to bet here that he's going to get his whole stack in and called within the first 50 hands.
That's a good bet. That is a very good bet. Phil Laak got some sustenance going there. It'll be so much fun to see Tony G and the Jungleman butt heads. The Jungleman's not scared of anyone, and I think Tony's going to try and abuse him.
But Tony and Dan have had a lot of fun back and forth over the past few months. Tony's been ribbing him, you know, on Twitter and online, and it's fun to finally see them go head-to-head live.
300 open by Torelli. G's called. There is not a chance in a blue moon that Trickett is not going to at least call. He has. And the Serb stuck an extra grand in. I mean, it's aggressive play, isn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty aggressive. The only weak part about his hand is that he's out of position in the big blind, but he does have the best hand here. It plays well, you know, versus multiple opponents and post flop. So he's out of position here, but nothing wrong with juicing the spot a little bit with a hand like that in a loose game like it is.
So it's 1,100 on Trickett.
When you get Tony G to call 1450 here with Queen 10 off, I guess, you know, making the big 3-bet with Ace 10 suited, you can't go wrong.
1450.
And what about Trickett's hand? There's a lot of value to this sort of hand, right?
I think Trickett is playing this hand against the exact two people at the table that he wants to play it against.
That would be nice now.
And Damir hits his ace on an ace-king-6 flop, and Tony makes a gut shot straight draw to the nuts. Trickett misses completely.
Just an indication that this is the way the game is going to go from now on. Pots are going to be big. Pre-flop raises are going to be big. The action's going to be big.
6 of spades in the window as well.
And Damir happy to win a pot there, starting out ahead. This is going to be fun, and this guy is definitely going to help out the game.
Yeah, and he just bets the flop and takes it down, and he's ready to get in the game now.
We have a straddle.
You know, I know that Tony G rages, he yells, he gets excited and obnoxious. But you look at him right now, he's having fun, isn't he? This is what he loves.
Oh, he's been excited all day. You can tell he's just been out and about at the bar, walking by the feature table, yelling, ranting and raving, just kind of getting everybody amped up at him. I mean, he's definitely playing his mind games, which he normally does, and he's just wants to mix it up. I think he wants to get his stack in early and double or rebuy.
Raise 175. 175, sir.
Romanello's open this, and Phil Laak calling for 175. Oh, and Tony's arrived back at the table just in time to get the money. And you know, the player's happy to wait for Tony G.
Yeah, I think they'll wait there for a while. Oh, and
wow.
Jungleman wakes up with the Rockets.
Re-raising here is pretty mandatory, isn't it? Just a question of size.
I would expect so.
Yeah.
Especially for an aggressive player like Jungleman.
What do you usually?
Big hands.
What do you usually think about size? Your four ways.
I think it's going to be a pretty big raise here because it's a perfect spot. It looks like a squeeze spot. It looks like a spot where you can raise pretty weak with a weaker hand because there's been an open raise with 2 callers. So I expect a raise to at least like 1,500 or so.
So more than a pot-sized bet.
Yes, definitely. And hoping for a re-squeeze behind him or something.
Raise 1,225.
12.25.
Marc, I gotta play it.
We're certainly going to get action from Tony. And how about Roberto?
I think Roberto's going to come along too. Because like Roberto's thinking in his mind right now. I mean, obviously he knows Jungleman's reputation. He's played with him before. He knows he's an excellent player. But he knows he's also likely to be doing this in this spot with a lot of weaker hands than a suited ace-jack. Especially with it would be. I expect him to see a flop here.
He's not that deep though, Roberto. I mean, or is he deep enough?
It's pretty close. He bought in for about 15,000, so it's like, you know, 1/15 of his of his stack. You know, 7-8%. It is a lot, but it's not too much. You know, 1,500 on top would have been too much, and it's just the right amount. And I think Dan knows that.
He's actually re-raised.
Oh.
Now this is going to be, I think, the end of the pot. We'll see what Tony G does here.
Tony G should definitely fold, as will Phil. But like I said, yeah, in Roberto's mind, Dan's definitely making a squeeze play here, which is just making a raise after there's been an open raise followed by a call or two.
Is he giving me enough? Is he giving me enough price?
Huh?
I don't think so.
Depends what the flop is.
God, that's so sick.
I think Sam Trickett's ever going to advise anyone to fold.
At least what Roberto's done here is he's made a really small 4-bet. So when Jungleman, if he makes a 5-bet, he can get away from it pretty easily here.
Money. I'm gonna fall in love with it too
But
much.
I don't necessarily think Kates will necessarily. Oh no! Well, Tony calls now. Now Kates is going to have to raise. If it folded around to him, he might have just flatted. But now he's definitely going to raise, I think.
Still might squeeze me out.
He's asked Roberto how much he has. He'll be pretty confident that Tony's not ultra strong just from the way he's been acting.
Yeah, he
but
might just rip it here, and he does.
He wants to get Roberto to call him with some hand like ace-king or even 2 queens or something like that.
Well, those hands would definitely call him there, but ace-jack just can't.
You got a pair?
Tony wants to call. He wants to see the flop, but he's not going to be able to.
Tony's just Hollywooding here. He has no intention of calling. Even Tony isn't thinking about it.
He likes to be the one that's pushing people around, does not like getting pushed back, Mr. G.
Kings.
Starting to be ahead a couple
Kings?
thousand now and
had a
poised
pretty good
for more. This is the Jungleman's house. More to come from the big game here in Vienna. Welcome back to Vienna for the big game. Big, bright, and beautiful in equal measures, this city is providing the perfect backdrop to this 48-hour non-stop game. Our original lineup has been shaken up with some new faces around the table, amongst them Tony G, a big game stalwart, but not enjoying the best introduction to the 6th edition.
This must be bad. There's more money. And people are just Let's go with the straddle, guys.
Poor G has yet to win a pot,
Let's go.
not for lack of trying.
Just a single straddle, something simple to start. Maybe we get the double.
Just one straddle.
If you've just started watching, green chips are worth 25, blue chips are worth 50, red chips are worth 100, the black sort of purplies are worth 500, and the yellows are worth 1,000.
This should be like a 200.
It's on me.
Within 37 hours, we should be playing 200, 400 with Annie by then.
Over 100.
That'd be nice. A lot of big stacks.
need some people to win some.
Yeah, I think it's 7.
Roberto opens with ace-7, and Jungle looks to call with the ace-jack.
Yeah, he's not finding a lot of great spots so far, Romanello, but this is a good one.
And Romanello outflops him there, hitting that jack 7.
Fairly standard to check that back, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it puts him in a tough spot if you were check raised there. It's a really difficult hand to play on the turn, so you got to bet it sometimes to balance your ranges, but checking back there is pretty reasonable.
Check.
And he may just check back again. No. Goes for the delayed continuation.
At this point in the hand, he feels comfortable that he has the best hand here and makes a really small bet, 150 into 725. Get a little bit of value out of it. He's really setting himself up to be check raised in a lot of spots here, but Dan's a real smart guy. And Dan does just that. Picks up on what he thinks is weakness by a really weak bet here. But I have to think that Roberto kind of knows that his bet looked weak. So he knows he's going to be check raised weaker there than you normally would if you made a bigger bet. I often make very similar bets. But when you make those bets, you have to be willing to call lighter than in other spots because you know how the bet looks.
That's exactly what I think. You've called this exactly right, Scott. Roberto, of course, very clever when it comes to flops, turns, and rivers. He's
and this is an interesting card, a 6 of hearts in the river. It actually might be the right kind of card for Jungleman here to represent he made a hand. I mean, it's a straight card and a flush card. So I expect Dan to put in another bet on the river, and it might very well work.
He's also got the ace of hearts. And if you are Jungleman, isn't it true that the one thing you're not really expecting Roberto to show up here with is a flush? Most guys would have bet the flush draw on the flop, wouldn't they have?
Right, he definitely doesn't put Roberto on, probably doesn't put Roberto on a flush here. And he has the ace of hearts, like you said, so a lot of Roberto's opening range includes, flush-wise, and would include a suited ace.
Feels like that's not a card that Roberto can call with. I mean, even the draws and stuff that he may have thought he was beating on the turn, a lot of them got there.
That's
this
right.
Feels like a pass, doesn't it?
It does feel like a pass. If he does end up making this call, this would be a really good call on the spot.
But he didn't get anything there, and he's laid it down.
Yeah, I mean, you can almost, in these kind of spots, you think Dan got lucky in a sense they got the right kind of card on the river for him to keep representing that kind of hand. But by the same token, I think had a offsuit queen come off on the river, I think Roberto probably does make that call, and Dan rather doesn't even try to bluff. So it was just the right card for him to make that play there.
Scott, do you feel kind of locked in for the long haul here?
Oh, yeah, I'm ready. I made sure to get eliminated from 1B really quickly, so I'd have a lot of time ahead of me in the booth tonight and have nothing to do tomorrow.
Great. Well, we're going to have some fun here then. What do you think in general about this casino, Vienna, stuff like that? The action, a lot of action here, isn't there?
Yeah, there's been a lot of action. I had a pretty short day, day 1B today. I didn't elect to play 1A because I was traveling from Ireland just yesterday and I was pretty tired, but got here. It's a really nice venue and so far enjoying the city.
A lot of big names in town. I'm sure you saw them all in the casino today.
We did, and Party Poker was gracious enough to throw a party last night, and it was a good time for the Premier League champion Scott Seaver. We all had a great time last night.
Tony's opened this at 200, called by his uncle.
It's not mathematically correct.
Mr. G, the jungle in the small blind, and Marc Gork, who in the big blind is just looking for a price. And this is the kind of flop where Tony G could really go to war. I know it's not a huge hand, but this is the first flush draw he's picked
Tony
up.
thinks he just flopped the nuts here.
And look,
and
the
he
way
bets pot.
Yeah.
Just, 8 high flush draw, nothing else. Just, he's trying to make this pot big. That's what he likes to do. He likes to take people out of their comfort zones. And it was a smaller pot pre, and he just wants to jam some money in there for him to do ridiculous things on the turn and river if the right cards fall.
Also, the way Tony G plays, the way he approaches this game aggressively, he's going to play his draws aggressively. That's the way he's going to balance it out.
Well, Gork is doing the same thing here, or rather, Damir G is doing the same thing here. you know, he's playing really aggressive, and instead of calling in spots, he's choosing to raise when in doubt. And Tony elects to call there with the flush draw.
Backed off by the other G. Well, the G's on the other foot now.
Auto check.
It's really interesting if he ends up calling with the ace high. Oh well, Tony makes a flush and doesn't even think about it. He snap bets it.
4,500.
Interesting to see Tony get back down there. I would have expected that he would have 3-bet all in, honestly, on the flop. He only had about 9,000 back, and it just seemed to me that was going to be his play. But
he's got to mix it up a little bit, and I guess they're not really that deep right now. And tomorrow these stacks are going to be a lot deeper when people start rebuying.
Things aren't all black and white when it comes to Tony G, a legendary figure in the annals of the big game. He's back and looking to repeat feats from previous shows. Not the most promising of starts, but with Tony G, expect the unexpected.
Go in there and hammer away and pick up 50 or 60,000 and back up.
A long way to go before Tony G realizes the dream of walking away with a sizable profit. Next time out, the big game is shaken up with the arrival of some new faces, and the pressure mounts as others wait for their chance to leave their mark on the big Game 6.